Nidgek Nbop, or Three Sisters soup. Okay, so first we're going to add just a little bit of sunflower oil. Let that get nice and hot. Okay, now you can add whatever protein you want. If you want to do this vegetarian or vegan, just omit it. You don't have to have a protein, but traditionally we would. This is some deer from last year, but you can use beef, you can use chicken, fish, elk, moose, whatever you've got. And like I said, if you don't want to have meat, that's fine. You don't have to have it, but I like to have it. So put in your beef or deer or whatever, sprinkle with some salt and some pepper, and we'll let that brown for a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to add, this is about a half a cup of shallots. You can use wild onion, you can use regular yellow onion or purple onion, or leeks, but this is about a half a cup. And stir that in, and then we love garlic. This is about a quarter cup of garlic. And we'll let that cook for a minute. Okay. At this point, add, it'd probably be a quarter teaspoon to a half a teaspoon of some sage. And then a twig of cedar. If you don't have cedar, that is fine. This adds a real earthy kind of pine flavor to it. It really brings out the flavor of the Three Sisters. Okay, we'll let that warm up for just a minute. Okay, now I've got about a cup of wild rice stock that I kept from when I did rice cakes a couple weeks ago. It's just the leftover fluid from the overcooked rice. This is just rice stock. Some people think it's just fluid and starch, but wild rice is really, really nutritious and super good for you. We'll mix that in. And as you probably could tell when I dumped it in, it's not just water. There's nutrition in there. Oh, it smells so good already. Okay, we'll let that come up to temperature. Now I'm going to add the squash. This is butternut squash because all my ho-chunk squash is already gone for the year. So this is just butternut squash that lasts a little bit longer, but you can use any kind of squash you want. You can use winter, summer squash, butternut or acorn squash. I really like butternut too, so we're using butternut. And just use as much or as little as you want. Okay, now I have some white lima beans, but you can use Potawatomi pole beans, or kidney beans, any kind of bean you have, because the Three Sisters are the corn, squash, and beans. Okay, now we're going to add about 2 cups of, you can use beef stock, any kind of stock you have, even vegetable stock. But this probably goes better with beef stock. If you're using like fish as your protein, you might want to use fish stock or vegetable stock or even chicken stock instead, but whatever you have on hand. The thing about cooking indigenous is you cook with whatever you have, whatever you've been able to grow, or really whatever you have in your home. Traditionally, Native Americans, indigenous people, we grow the Three Sisters every year, and that's the corn, beans, and squash. So this Three Sisters stew is just going off of that tradition of cooking what we've grown. So after you add your stock, now I'm going to go ahead and add the corn. And this was probably about 6 ears of corn. But again, whatever you have on hand, you can use canned corn or dried that you have rehydrated, whatever you have on hand. Now, I was able to get some fresh corn, so bonus. But I want to share something with you about when you have your fresh corn. And that is, you know, normally we just throw the silk and the leaves away, but you might want to keep, like I keep the green part of the corn, the leaves of the corn that comes off, for when I'm making bread or tamales or something like that. But also the beautiful corn, the silk from the corn. People throw this away and you shouldn't. This is a blessing. I keep it, I dry it. It's loaded with vitamin A. So especially in the winter time when we're all a little bit depleted of vitamin A, or if we've been sick and we're depleted of vitamin A, I'll make this into a tea. So I dry this and then just put it in a tea whenever we're not feeling so great. So don't throw that away. So now we're just gonna let this come up and simmer. Well, before we do that, let's add, we need a little bit of heat. So I don't like a lot of heat, but my husband does. So this is probably 1/4 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I'm gonna add a little bit more pepper and some salt. Okay, so now we're gonna cover this and let it simmer for, you can let this simmer for as long as you want, but this is gonna go for about 20 minutes and then we'll go to the next. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. It smells so good. Now I'm gonna add about 1/2 cup of wild rice. Now, if you need more fluid at this point, if it's absorbed all of the fluid, go ahead and add some more stock or water as you go, because you know, sometimes you just never know. Go ahead and mix this in a little bit, and then we're gonna cook this for, or simmer it for 40 minutes. Okay, I think it's looking done. Yes. Yep, the wild rice is done. Everything looks and smells beautiful. Okay, we'll go ahead and dish this up. Okay, and for seasoning, traditionally we'll put on just a little bit of sage ash. I'll have to make it in another video on how to make it, but just sprinkle a little bit on top. And that's all you need. There you go. Enjoy.